What's up, everybody? Welcome to the first ever interview that we got here for the Voice Actor Haven Discord server. This server was made 2 days ago, and we have amassed over 200 members in the server, man. I am so incredibly happy, for this
Hey.
environment being curated, dog. It is so exciting to see just people inspired, wanting to learn, grow, and improve their abilities as a voice actor in this space and industry overall. But tonight, we got somebody special here, man. A longtime friend, a longtime homie of mine, one of the most inspiring actors that I believe we have right now in the industry, Mauricio Ortiz Segura. Welcome, brother. Welcome, brother.
Thank you. It's good to be here, man. Thank you for inviting me. Bro, we started around the same time, you and I.
Yeah, man. It's been one hell of a journey, I'd say, man. Over the course of starting out this career and trying to climb the ladder, having aspirations about being a part of this industry, and just being able to work at least somewhat consistently, and now being here, or at least seeing you being here, particularly, man. That announcement for being in a Zelda game, bro. What?
Thank you,
Oh
man. Yeah.
man.
No, that shit was crazy for me. Are we allowed to swear? My bad. I should ask.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, no, that was crazy for me. When I got the email, I don't remember if I got it this year or last year, but we recorded for it in January, and then it was like the longest 10 months of my life. And so I've just been waiting patiently because I saw not the due date when the game wasn't pregnant. I saw the release date, um, and yeah, I mean, it was just bonkers that it was going to come out this year of all. So I mean, and by then, I didn't even have like To Be Your Ex by then or anything. So I was still like, oh my gosh, this is wild. I was like, it doesn't get much better than this, does it?
No, 100%, 100%, homie. So to officially start this, give us a little bit of an introduction, man. Repeat the name because I believe that I accidentally butchered your last. And just tell some people some of your most prominent roles, what people might know you by.
Yeah, okay. So I am Mauricio Ortiz Segura, if you pronounce it like a Hispanic. But if not, Mauricio Ortiz Segura works just fine. Um, if you put a little accent on it, like Nassim did, hell yeah, props to you. Uh, for me, my career started out in theater. So I've never done professional theater, but I was a theater kid, so that was where I got most of my early acting training on. I did improv classes. I was supposed to go to competitions for improv, but my my improv partner he had like type 2 diabetes or something, and then like his thing came out like day of competition, and then he like quit improv. So I was like, well, I guess I'm not doing improv anymore because I just didn't have a partner. um but I don't think I've ever talked about that. That was a crazy like early acting experience for me. But yeah, I went through middle school acting a lot of the time, and then I got to high school, and I didn't really do it until sophomore year because freshman year I was trying to be cool. I was trying to be a jock. I was trying to do all the sports, basketball, football. In the end, I ended up like screwing up my knee way more because I did sports freshman year of high school. So I was like, okay. So then I had to find a new purpose in life, and then I rediscovered acting. And I did acting for the last 3 years of high school. And once I graduated high school, I told myself, you know what, I'm gonna keep acting. And I got my first role in a film. I did film for a while, made enough money doing film and background work and commercial work, and then I invested in voiceover. And I've been doing voiceover professionally since 21, so almost 4 years now. I've been paid to do voiceover work, which is awesome. And it's been an amazing journey. And you might know me now for To Be Hero X, which is what my profile picture is, my character Nice, and Lin Ling in that show. Amazing, awesome show. I couldn't have been more blessed to be a part of it. My Hero Academia You're Next, which is the fourth movie in the My Hero Academia franchise, as Giulio Gandini. And a recent role was Shinichi Kudo, which I think was also announced this year, which is crazy, man. So much is happening this year. Shinichi Kudo, and now Kid the Phantom Thief, which I can officially talk about, which is awesome. Those were really, really fun. And now, most recently, in the new canon Hyrule Warriors spinoff, Age of Imprisonment, as the young Zora Knight Catelyn. Those are some roles that you might know me from. And I've been in other shows such as One Piece, My Dress Up Darling, um, MF Ghost, with Nassim. I'm in The Great Cleric and Sugar Apple Fairy Tale with him. And so many other great shows that are slipping my mind. But I'm in a lot of anime nowadays. I'm very happy that I've managed to build a lot of good relationships with directors and producers that like my work and like what I do. So, my job now is to just keep showing them that I got what it takes.
Heck yeah, man. I feel like that whenever we get asked this question regularly, like when it comes to talking about like our most prominent roles, we're like selecting between our children almost. So like in terms of who we're putting on stage, because there's a lot that we get to, do in this space. And it is incredibly cool to see just how crazy your career has gotten within this year alone, but just generally. Because I remember the days of Sugar Apple, the Cleric, those two I'm wishing are again a season 2, or with Sugar Apple Fairy Tale's case, getting a season 3. But that progression from seeing where we are then and seeing where you are today now, it's crazy how much can happen in such a short amount of time. So that kind of leads me into my first question. Nearing the start of your career, or overall throughout your entire career, what would you say were your top 3 most vital canon events that contributed to putting yourself in the position that you are in today?
Okay, so first canon event, my knee exploded, and I don't sugarcoat it. That shit happened to my knee. I tore my ACL, my MCL, and herniated my meniscus. I did everything bad possible to your knee. Playing basketball, non-contact, and that was the highest scoring game of my life as well. So all adding insult to injury. So quickly, my dreams of becoming a NBA professional player were dashed. And then I found art, which was a very nice alternative, and it still had aspects of it that lent itself to sort of a sports mentality. I love competing. I love being in at the athlete's mentality in a way. Um, and obviously it's not healthy to think of like everyone in the industry as competition or anything, but it does help motivate you, but like to fire under your butt, to see so many awesome people succeeding. And you're like, damn, man, maybe if I worked harder, like I could get to that same point. And I think that reasoning, that style of thinking helped me a lot and pushed me forward. So definitely that injury. I see some people, someone also had the same injury in the same sport. Yeah, dude, it sucks. You had to have surgery for it. They had to move the bones like pieces out. Oh boy. So that was canon event number 1, because it forced me to look at alternatives beyond sports, and that's how I rediscovered acting again. My second canon event to put me where I was in my college dorm, and I was still doing like film. I was mainly doing like student films. Like whenever I could get on a film set, I would. I love doing student films because it just felt like such real acting. Even if all of us were somewhat still amateur, it really felt like we were all creating a really fun thing. Even if the film never came out, I don't think I saw a single finished student film I ever did, bro. Like, not one. And that's what happens with film. It's just like a lot of indie pilots, you know, like sometimes it just never comes out, even if you really love the process of making it. Um, and so, but I was doing that, and I remembered, hey, I lived in Flower Mound, Texas when I was younger. I lived like 5 minutes from the original Funimation office. Like, how do I get in there? Is Funimation even still a thing? It was not a thing anymore. So I was like, okay, so it's Crunchyroll now. How does that work? How do I even get into anime? How do I even get into anything? I loved video games. I loved cartoons. You know, I grew up on Nickelodeon, Nicktoons, Boomerang, Cartoon Network, like anything and everything that showed a cartoon, man. Like I I would be there. And so I wanted to get in on that, and that's what led me to doing more research in voiceovers specifically. And because of that, I did a lot more investing in equipment and my own skills. I took more classes, and that sort of led me to my third canon event, I think, which is when I finally decided to take an in-person class for voiceover for the first time, and that's where I was lucky enough to meet one of the wonderful directors, Crunchyroll, Jason Lord. He was there, and he really believed in me, and I owe a lot of my career to him, you know. And I know some people don't like the glaze, but I really do love getting to work with Jason whenever, because he was one of the earliest people to believe in what I could do. He was the guy who brought me on to anime, and he was the guy who gave me my first lead role opportunity, and he's always been someone who has believed in me, and I really gotta give him a lot of props for that. And so, yeah, I would say definitely the injury leading to art, then realization of I want to do voiceover, not just film, and then I would say Jason sort of discovering me in terms of voiceover. Because I had no following. In reality, I had no following at all when I started doing anime.
Without a doubt, brother. I mean, it's crazy to see just how our path can shift when it comes to certain things being injected into our lives to get to get to where we are today, I'd say. And a lot of the canon events vary between a lot of different people, but yours is, kind of crazy, brother. But going into this next question, we're kind of gonna go into a audition territory, I feel. What would you say is your process of breaking down a character audition versus a commercial audition?
See, that's the super interesting thing is for me, my entire audition process for a lot of the things I do, it varies depending on what it is. With commercials, I tend to just go with instinct. I feel like a lot of times your first read is your most natural read, and the most natural read is what's going to book. You know, there are some auditions, some commercial auditions that are, they are wacky. They're character driven. I've seen like 10 million different commercials that have like a talking animal or like a mascot or something, and they're talking like this. And so for those, it's almost similar to an animation or a video game audition. But a lot of times, especially if you're doing like AT&T auditions or like sort of just like the phone call, the big industry people that you see commercials of all the time, for those, yeah. I see someone says, Chris Hackney said, yeah, you just have to sound pretty. Pretty much. That's exactly it. If you can sound, some auditions will ask, they're like, yeah, we want a unique sound. We want someone who sounds like, I don't know, Danny DeVito. And you're like, bro, only Danny DeVito sounds like Danny DeVito. I remember I got a Nike commercial once, and I was like, okay, they want something that sounds like inspiring and different and wow. So okay, and I read it like that, and the guy who booked it was Willem Dafoe, and I was like, okay. So I didn't stand a damn chance, did I? And there are some auditions that you will get, and you will see the top cream of the crop actors in the actual like Hollywood industry that audition for the same thing that I auditioned for. And I'm like, what the hell, man? So it's really weird. It comes down to so many things. If your name is recognizable, that's amazing because you've probably made it and so many people can know who you are without like even having to look at your work. But for people that are like me who are still, fighting to show their names out there in the bigger Los Angeles market, it becomes a lot harder because we're trying to prove that these guys who've been doing the work for 20 years now, I'm just as good as them, like I'm trying to prove that they don't think that, they don't know that, they don't know who I am. So for commercials, it's really hard because I've booked a lot of non-union commercials, but I managed to book one union one actually. But I lost it because I wasn't union. But that's a familiar story for you, brother. I know. I know it happened to me too this year. I was real upset about it. Yeah, no, some people don't, especially for commercials because commercials are such a quick turnaround. They do not taft. Some will if there's enough time in production, but oh my goodness,
So for
they
the highlight on this, just because not a lot of people might know what a Taft-Hartley is or the myth of the SAG-AFTRA, just to put a pin in this question and talk about that,
yeah.
do you potentially kind of give your own explanation of what a Taft-Hartley is and the aspects of being union versus non-union as a voice actor in this space?
Yeah. So Taft-Hartley is, I believe, because I'm not a SAG expert on it because I haven't joined SAG yet. But yeah, Taft-Hartley itself, I believe it was a literal legal case in in the U.S. court system, and it eventually leads to allowing for non-union actors to work on union work so long as the production team that is running the union project acknowledges that that non-union actor gets, they will be treated like a union actor, but they get none of the benefits and the production gets none of the protections in case that non-union actor screws them over, so basically, it's a big fancy document. For the actor itself, it's super easy. You just sign your name and it's over. For them, it's so much paperwork, which is why which is why a lot of auditions will say union only, no Taft-Hartleys, no nothing, because it's tedious. It's a tedious process for production. But it is worth it because there are a lot of non-union talent that sound better than a lot of union talent. So, it's it's basically a fancy document that allows you to work on a union project, even though you're non-union. But however, if you book 3 different projects, so if you book one project and they bring you back for like 5 sessions, that's okay. That still counts as one project. That is one Taft-Hartley. 2 Taft-Hartleys, okay. Now you've reached the limit. Now it takes one more. And once you get one more, if you book one more union project, that third union project you cannot be Taft-Hartley'd onto. You have to join the union in order to do it. And so that is the thing with union itself. Union projects are very interesting. I've been lucky enough to work on a few myself, and they typically will pay you a lot better than non-union work will, just because the union has better rates. But it is sort of the biggest pay-to-play model in the industry there is because you literally shell out thousands of dollars just to audition and book things. And that's it. It's like if you paid for backstage, but a lot more. Um, but in short, yeah, the Taft-Hartley is a fancy document that lets you work on union projects even though you're non-union, and you only get 2.
Alrighty. Well, thank you. We're gonna go back to the second question. Kind of now, we talked a little bit about the commercial aspect, about breaking it
Yeah,
down,
yeah.
your perceptions about it. Let's now go back to the character stuff and if it differs between animation, video games, or anime auditions.
Yeah, so anime, animation, and video game do differentiate between themselves. They are very different. I've booked callbacks and booked roles in every aspect of that. And they are all a little different. With anime, because that seems to be my bread and butter for some reason. Anime itself is a little more rigid in terms of auditioning. There is teensy bits of freedom to like give the character a little bit of like pizzazz and improv that, but most of the time you're going to stick to the script, you don't want to throw in a big like like a 10-second scream in the middle for no reason. You don't want to add words where there's not words if it doesn't make any sense, because in anime a lot of words are written the way they are because they're meant to fit a certain amount of time on screen. So if you start improvising and it doesn't work, well, then you just look stupid. So in anime, a lot of times I will go with my first instinct as well. However, if it is a character that I do find a lot of enjoyment in, or I'm just not feeling like the way my first take was like really my best take, then I will spend like an hour on it. It, it that's the problem with me. I feel like my style changes just based on what the audition demands. I've had auditions where I did one take, sent it off, and I booked it. And I've had other auditions where I did one take, sent it off, and I didn't hear anything about that show. And I've had other takes where I worked on that audition for over an hour, and then I booked it. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. I worked a lot on that audition. And I've done the same thing where I've worked on an audition for 3 hours and I didn't book it. And so it all comes down to personal style, it comes down to how you think your performance is. A lot of times once you get to sort of like past 3 takes, you start realizing you're not really differentiating much if you're not like changing the voice. Like if you're keeping the same voice and you're just doing different takes, you won't do stuff that's terribly different. But which is why a lot of people will recommend. I know Marissa Lenti, or not Marissa Lenti. Dang it, she works for Marissa Lenti's I think a different actress. Who am I thinking of? She works for Sound Cadence. Am I
Ooh.
right?
Well, Marissa, I believe Marissa works for SoundCloud.
Oh, I was right. I was right. Okay, Marissa Lenti. Yeah, she is another person who said that they audition first takes mostly. Like they just do the first take of everything they do and they send it off. And if it works, awesome. If it doesn't work, doesn't work. But she's been doing this way longer than I have, and she's done a lot more than I have. So there you go, another person that that style of auditioning works. But then we get to video games. Video games, you tend to have a lot more freedom in terms of improvisation and adding character. I've had auditions where I didn't improvise at all and I booked it. And I've had characters where I improvised the hell out of the audition and I booked it. So it just comes down to what you think is right. And it's crazy because auditions, there's no real wrong answer outside of a bad performance. So if you can take a class with the person, because a lot of times when my agent sends me things, and I know maybe a lot of people in here don't have an agent yet, but you will. And when you have an agent, they will typically tell you who the casting director is for the project, and if there's a class for them, then I do recommend taking a class for them because they will reveal a lot of insights into how they cast. And I can't vouch for casting director classes enough. Even if you never book work with them, they give you an insight into what the industry is, especially for video games, because video games, and here's a good little tidbit, they hate the anime voice. Hate it. I've taken so many classes where someone did an anime voice and they got ripped for it. I did a take I thought was pretty grounded, and then she looked me in the eyes and she said, There's the anime voice. I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you mean this is the anime voice? But sometimes you do enough anime, it starts to come out a little bit. I always thought my voice was a little grounded, so that's what surprised me, but it did make me think, you know? And so the anime voice, yeah, the anime accent, whatever it is, it will work for anime games, funnily enough. But when you start wanting to book like games that are like The Last of Us or games that take themselves super seriously and they're super grounded in reality, you can't start sounding like this, because nobody in that game is going to sound like that. Most of the time, you're going to sound like yourself. And so, get really, really comfortable with your own voice because that's what's going to book you the most work. And now we move on to animation. Animation is improv central. They love improvisation so long as you don't waste their time and give them a dog shit performance on top of it. Animation is a lot of fun because I've never felt more free than when I do animation auditions. Typically, the characters are very zany. They're meant to live in this cartoony land, and it gives you a lot of freedom, and you can technically still do like anime type voices because you will still hear them in normal like Western animations. So I guess it's not more of an anime accent and more so of a cartoon accent. In video games, they don't really want you to sound like cartoons unless the video game itself is cartoony, which is hard to know of because a lot of times they're behind code names. But animation is more improv based. Video game is a lot more grounded, but you still have some room for improvisation. And anime is a lot more rigid, but they still want you to do something that sounds different from the thing that everybody else is doing. If that makes any sense, Nassim, let me know if I made any sense behind my incoherent ramblings.
Without a doubt, and I couldn't agree like more. I'm gonna be real, because like with also having recorded in each of those genres with animation, prelay, and anime and video games, I feel whenever I'm getting directed in these sessions, the direction itself and what they're going for is almost universally apart from each other. The difference between going in for an anime session, the differences between going in for a video game session, and the difference between going in for an animation session surprisingly is very different. So that will also then apply itself to the audition aspect as well. So I couldn't happier be in agreement with that. So going into this third question, because I realize that a lot of people struggle with this particularly, what are some tips that you can provide to help with the nerves of getting to the booth or recording for a client or just doing voice acting in general?
So for me, I still get nerves to this day, man. Like the nerves never really go away, which is interesting. But a lot of times what I do, it's just a mentality thing. I don't have like a secret trick where you like, you draw an X on your hand and you eat it or something, like you could do that. And if it works, awesome. Anything that helps calm your nerves, do it. As long as it's not like, hard drugs or something, like so long as it's something that won't kill you, do it if it calms you. But and as long as you seem professional, obviously don't show up to these to the session smelling like weed. But for sure, the thing that I always do is I remind myself that I'm there for a reason, right? Like I remember I had a session in LA not too a few weeks back, and I remember texting my girlfriend Lexi. I was like, dude, I'm so damn nervous for this shit, bro. This is a really cool thing, and she helped remind me that yeah, I'm there for a reason. They picked me. They picked me over so many other people, maybe thousands of other people. I don't know how many auditions go in, but yeah, I mean, reminding yourself that you are there for a reason, that they picked you, and out of everybody else they could have picked. They could have picked someone way more famous than me. They could have picked someone that maybe I don't know, they did the exact same thing as me, but they wanted to give me the chance, And so it's just a matter of mentality. There are plenty of little secrets, I'm sure, online about like ways to calm nerves. But I find taking like several deep breaths in and out, in a nice slow fashion to be the best way to calm my nerves. Because that's what I did when I played sports. And I had so many games where I was nervous as hell, and just being out there. And once you get into the rhythm of recording, especially once you start doing it, like the nerves will still be there, but they'll start going away once you're like, okay, this is going better than I thought, or oh man, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So it's mostly mentality for me that saves me whenever I get nerves.
Mhm. Without a doubt. And honestly, I would also agree with that. I mean, till this day, I would be walking into the Crunchyroll studio and immediately having to use the bathroom because, my nerves and and man, let me tell you guys, Crunchyroll's toilet paper sucks ass. Oh my god, I have never experienced the toilet paper like sandpaper on my cheeks ever. It is the worst. But the nerves is something that I feel like is a universal thing. Because the scale of what we do in the space and industry is so incredibly undetermined, and we will never guess what our next gig can be. The biggest thing we could ever imagine, or just something that we find so cool, and working up for the nerves to be able to knock that out is a hard process. But personally, I do the same thing. I kind of within that mentality being like, okay, I'm here for a reason. If I sucked ass, I wouldn't be here. You know what I'm saying? If I was garbage, like, if I sucked, I wouldn't be here. And even like outside of this, just to kind of play around with the nerves conversation a little bit. Have you ever received an audition or piece of copy that have also kind of made you nervous to read for or doubt yourself? Do you believe that the concept of how you deal with those nerves versus being in the studio are different between each other?
Oh, dude, I get auditions that make me nervous every week. Like it's crazy. The casual audition I'll get for like some shit that I've been watching or playing or doing since like my childhood years, and I'll be like, what the hell? And so for that, I feel like I've gotten to a point where getting those almost seemingly outlandish auditions for me has gotten sort of normalized. And so because I don't book everyone, like I hardly book them, if anything. Like, don't get me wrong, like I might be posting a lot, but for every role that you see, I have failed to book at least another 50, you know? And so, and that's me going up against like the best of the industry. And that's just how it is, man. It's that reality where this industry is so fucking hard to truly succeed in. And there are people that you see and they're surviving and they're thriving, and you're like, "Oh my god, these guys are booking everything." They are in the exact same situation that I am in. Like, maybe they book things more because they've established more relationships than I have. But dude, like, they are auditioning as much as I am, and they are failing as much as I am. But as long as you don't consider auditioning and not booking something a failure, and you just consider it, oh, that's just how it goes. Because that's the mentality that you have to have in order to keep going, because this industry is an endurance test, man. It's those that can get knocked down over and over and over and over and over again until one person finally picks you up and says, yeah, why not?
Mhm.
And so it's just that over and over again. And so for auditions, I remember I did get an audition like 2 weeks ago I was like, whoa, because I'd never gotten one for that project in specific. So that one was another one of those auditions that I spent like 3 hours on, man. I don't think
Mhm.
I booked it but that's how much the role would have meant to me if I had booked it. And I can't remember who I'm stealing this quote from, but I believe I'm stealing it from Ryan Colt Levy, who stole it from someone else's class. But in auditions, it might be the first and only time you ever get to play that character. So you might as well have fun with it, man. You can make it last. Sure, sometimes it's better to send and forget. You do the audition in 30 minutes and you send it off and you don't think about it anymore. But Sometimes if the role really does mean that much to you, spend some time on it. Yeah, it's going to sting when you don't book it, but dude, that's going to be half of your career if you try and stick in voiceover. It's going to be not booking the role. And you're going to book a big role maybe every couple months. And that's how it is, bro. That's how it is for me. And so, you know, with those auditions, the nerves come, but once you start recording, you feel them go away and you start getting analytical and you start strategizing and it becomes a lot more fun. So I turn the nerves into fun with auditions as much as I can. And it differentiates a little from the booth because in the booth, typically you have somebody staring at you, expecting you to do a good job, right? uh, but in auditions, you're just by yourself a lot of the times. If you get a buddy to direct you, even better, because then you can share in the misery of trying to figure out what voice is right for this character. That means a lot to you. But in in any session that's directed by someone else that is expecting you to do a good job because they're paying you to do a good job, it is a little more nerve wracking. But for that, it's the same mentality of I'm there for a reason. I'm there because they wanted me. I'm there because I'm meant to be here, you know?
Without
And
a doubt.
anyone else could have been in my position, but they picked me. And so long as you remember that, no matter what, whenever they pick you, whatever they pick you for, just know that you're them, bro. You are that
Mm,
guy for being
yeah,
picked. And no one else can take that from you.
without a doubt, man. I think the topic of rejection is such a, you know, nuanced conversation that pops up here and now and then, just within social media generally, because I think that with the concept of social media, and it being kind of like this filter, from the public, and actually being able to see the wide amount of opportunity that is being constantly rejected from your average bigger guy or bigger person in this space. I think overall rejection is something that everybody kind of commonly deals with, man. I've had auditions that I've cried over not booking. I've had
Mhm.
auditions that have knocked me up because I thought it was perfect. Just recently I had a role like that towards where I thought, man, in every single aspect, this role like screams me. Like why does not happen? So I think the overall concept of understanding that it's a part of the job, and understanding that regardless of what happens within the confines of doing an audition, there's always another one to go for. There's always the next big thing. In the anime scale, there's always the next big anime. It's something that an actor by the name of Nazim Tarsha, I talked with him about this
Mm.
concept a little bit, and Nazim mentions that at least specifically for anime, he doesn't put a lot of pressure on himself to book these bigger, IPs or properties because there's always the next thing coming out. We have Kagurabachi that's going to be, going into,
Mhm. Yeah.
animation and stuff. There's so many cool things. Like JJK just got a spin-off and the anime isn't even done yet. So I'm like, there's so much like future opportunities, future auditions on bigger, smaller, or more general scale, that worrying and putting so much pressure on yourself to just book this one, um, is not really all that recommended. You know what I'm saying? So I do definitely agree with the concepts and the ideologies that you brought in to at least this
Absolutely,
conversation.
dude. Yeah, like you made a great point. And I think it was Ducky that said in the chat that, a lot of people are trying to be like the next Alejandro or the next Michael Kovac, you know? And those guys have done amazing for themselves because they worked their asses off for it, you know? And but you shouldn't compare yourself to someone who's already there and made it, you know? That person made it through their own hard work. So you need to go out there, and they are great inspirations, dude. Alejandro inspires me every day of his damn life. And I've been lucky to work with him on a few projects now, which is absolutely crazy. But if you're always trying to be like somebody else, you'll never be able to be yourself, you know? Um, and so yeah, man. No, and I've been the same way with anime. I've come to that realization, because there are plenty of anime that I would love to book. I'd love to book Kagurabachi. I'd love to book so many other manga that are coming out, and they're definitely gonna get anime. There's gonna be Ichi the Witch. There's gonna be Goku Rakugai. There's gonna be so many other stories that have yet to be told. JoJo's Part 7 is coming out, and there's so many shows that I would love to be a part of. But the reality is, I'm probably not going to get to be in it. I probably won't even see an audition for it. And so, it'll sting. It'll sting if the audition doesn't come your way, but you knew it went out, and then people get cast in it anyway. But there's always something new coming, especially in anime, and there's so much manga that's just being pumped out. There's always going to be an opportunity for anime. Always going to be an opportunity for anime. Always going to be an opportunity for video games. Always going to be an opportunity for animation, because those are just art styles that just don't really die. They only die when money stops flowing, sadly. But in some way, especially with the way that indie animation's been popping off recently, it really shows that animation as an art style will never die. And so it's really cool to know that there's always something new to look forward to. You'll never truly get hung up on the one thing you feel like got away. Even if you got like 3 callbacks for something and you were in like the final 4 and you're like, oh my gosh, this is it, this is my big break, and then it didn't happen. There's gonna be more, man. There's always more. So don't get hung up on the one thing. Let it sting. Let it sting and push you forward. But yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm seeing a few roles in here that some people really wanted to audition for, but sadly, that's the reality. Is we won't get to audition for so many things we think we would be great for, that we want the chance to be for. I had one audition for a One Piece character that I was like, oh my god, I would love to be him. I love One Piece with all my soul, and I didn't book him, and I was like, damn, and it stung. But guess what, man? 2 years later, I got into One Piece anyway. And so that's just how it goes. Is you don't know how much time will pass before you get the next opportunity to be in something that you really care about, or to be in something that replaces the thing that was your dream role. There's always new dream roles. And it's a never-ending cycle of, oh, I want to be this, I want to be that. And that's the industry, baby.
Yes, sir. No, 100%, man. I think that, the fact that it stings and it hurts as much as it does shows that you care. Shows that you give a crap about this career in space. It shows that you want it. That fire is still within you. I couldn't even, if I had a conversation with myself way back when I was a little rascal of a voice actor pulling at every string and doing all these things, and told that version of myself what I would end up doing today, I would punch myself in the balls. Like I don't think that it would have been something that they would actually have believed like would be a thing, because his career is so unpredictable and so many things can happen if you just keep going. So leading into the next question here, and this is kind of the same idea of the topic, but something kind of a little bit different. What are some of the things you do to keep busy during a quote-unquote voiceover drought?
Oh, dude, I was in a voiceover drought recently. Like, I wasn't booking anything new for several months, and that's just kind of what it is. At least it's weird, because sometimes you will get like a lot of stuff in one market, and then the other market will completely shun you, and then a lot of times the other market will pick back up, and then the other market will be like, we've had enough. It's really, really weird with the industry. But when I feel like I'm just not doing a lot of work, I'm not booking, whatever reason, I focus on what is it that I can control in the moment, right? Can I control how updated my demo reels are? Yeah, okay, let's focus on that. Let's focus on maybe finding a cost-effective way to update my demo reel so that I can have an excuse to resubmit to studios, to resubmit to casting rosters, to resubmit to casting directors. What else can I control? Well, have I submitted to any new rosters lately? No. Okay, well, why don't I look for new rosters to submit to? Why don't I update my website? Have I updated my website? Do I have a website? If I don't have a website, what am I doing? Okay, let me go make a website on Card or something other that's completely free. And okay, what else can I do? Can I take classes? Yeah, let's take classes. Let's learn. Let's learn why I'm in a drought right now. And it's just controlling what you can control when you can't control the things that you want to control. What else can you control? Go work out, man. Get a gym membership or go run outside. There are some parks that also function fully as gyms because, yeah, that can happen. I love to go to the gym when I have nothing else going on because it forces me to not think about the things that I wish was happening, you know? And that those are just some of the things that I like to do, and some of the things that I've actively done whenever I am in a drought because I hate the feeling of not doing anything. I always like to be like moving or doing something. Do you like cooking? Try cooking more. Try watching that show that you've been meaning to binge for forever. Just distract yourself, man. Life is too short for you to worry about when is my next acting gig coming. And a lot of us, we do have day jobs, like, so we can focus on the day job. And if the day job is not giving us full fulfillment, that's why we look for other things out there. We look for physical fitness as fulfillment. We look for developing a new hobby, developing a new skill. It's the same thing in every aspect, a job application. Um, yeah, man. I just try to distract myself as best as possible. I love doing it with video games. I'm playing Pokemon Legends EA right now, because it's November, December. You know what that means, bro? Nothing's happening. Uh, if you didn't book something earlier in like October, nothing is happening. And so it's just a matter of waiting. You're
Mm.
just waiting to get an audition. You're waiting to audition and see if anyone says anything. You're waiting to get the next audition. It's just waiting, 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 waiting. And auditioning is the job. Auditioning is the job, and it is the fun because the actual acting ends up being more of the dessert than anything else. Um, so long as you keep yourself distracted, yeah, I
Yeah.
think you will find yourself in a much better mental health space. So long as you're not like, cooped up uh, in your room and you're not moving around or nothing. And a lot of us we got depression, man. We got that seasonal depression. I get it. I've been there. Shit's hard. Shit's hard. It's hard to motivate yourself to get out. So
Mm.
what can you do? Force yourself, man. Get a buddy. Get a gym buddy. Make
Mm.
someone take you places. Organize hangouts if you can, or organize playing games with people. Just keep yourself distracted.
Yeah.
Keep yourself distracted, buddy, because that is the only thing you can do while you wait for the next thing. While you wait for your life to change.
Without a doubt, brother. I feel like that this like is such a another kind of nuanced conversation because no matter where we are in our careers, at least generally with us, I don't really know about the bigger guys. They're probably working every day. They probably got too much work. You never know. But when it comes, at least in this general vicinity, I feel like that droughts are still common. And I think
Mhm.
that overall in our space, we get so caught up with the idea of progression. We all want to progress in any way we possibly can. And focusing on that aspect of control, what we can control, what we can do, taking that step back, looking at our businesses, looking at our acting ability, looking at other aspects that doesn't have to always do with the job and booking the job. Outside of that, I feel it can be really helpful. And highlighting something that you mentioned about going other routes and enjoying other aspects about life outside of the career. Kellen Goff had a very interesting tweet a couple, I think maybe a year back, where they were talking about the concept of being so invested with this career that you forget how to be a human. and how to
Mm-hmm.
be able to enjoy life overall. And that aspects of life, aspects of understanding life, aspects of pushing yourself more commonly with life and all these other aspects could also grow you as an actor too. And a lot of people don't really play around with that concept a lot. Recently I watched an anime known as Gurren Lagann. And I was like, I had that shit on my watch list for a while, man. And I listened to that in dub. I sat down throughout the whole day, had nothing to do, nothing really voiceover wise to, chip at. So I was like, I'm gonna watch Gurren Lagann. Changed my life, bro.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that
dude.
shit was fucking crazy. There's a character named Keaton, and I really loved the way that that actor performed that role, and how they played around with that so much. Later on, I ended up booking a character that were similar character types to Keaton. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take some inspiration from what I learned from watching this show into my performance. Until this day, I think that whenever that comes out, it's going to be one of my favorite performances that I've ever done. And I think the aspect of, once again, taking that time to take that step back and associating yourself with other aspects of life could not, but maybe has the possibility of crossing in paths with your career as well. So I think overall, once again, I do honestly agree with your perspectives about this. And, voiceover droughts happen commonly, man, but just controlling what you can do is the best way to combat that.
Mhm.
Yeah, leading into our next question, going back into acting specifically, what are 3 pieces of acting advice you've received that have redefined how you go about recording in voiceover?
Three what? Sorry.
Oh yeah, 3 pieces of acting advice that's just redefined your acting ability and how you go about recording.
3 pieces of acting advice. So my memory's dog. So give me a second to think here. 3 pieces of acting advice that have changed my brain chemistry forever. I would say it was one that I think it's anime specific, so it might not be very helpful to people, but it did change me a lot. And that was thanks to Sean Gan, amazing director. He comes from a theatrical background, so he's very well informed on grounded and theatrical takes on characters. And he was directing me on Sugar Apple Fairy Tale, and that was my second anime role. So it was like my second biggest role in my career ever. I think it was even bigger than the first role I got. So I was incredibly nervous because that I went from showing up in 3 episodes and saying 5 minutes or like 2 minutes worth of episode content to showing up in 11 of 12 episodes. And I was like, oh, brother, I'm nervous. But he was directing me on that, and he was telling me so many different things that people who are succeeding and doing what they're doing, he was telling me exactly what they do. And so I remember I flubbed a line, and I because for me I had the mentality of, oh, okay, I do one take, and if it's not good enough we do another take, if it's not good enough I do another take, and Sean, he told me, oh, you know what Zeno Robinson does, right? And I said, no, I don't know what Zeno does. And he was like, oh yeah, so what he does is he throws out like 5 takes in between, like the time the beeps start and the end, like literally going into the next line, and I have to tell Zeno, okay, I think we have it, you know but him saying that, I started trying to do that as well, and it was actually working out for me. And so that sort of shaped my brain chemistry into being like, okay, what else are the pros that are succeeding doing, you know I can look at them for inspiration, and I can see things that they've done in their career. And why don't I just try and do some of that as well? And so I would ask a lot of, and I would get some advice on like what other pros would do. I remember I was told Ian Sinclair what he likes to do is he likes to when the Japanese is going, he will read alongside the Japanese. So you'll just hear English overlapping with Japanese at the same time. He'll be reading the script, and it's impossible to tell what his what his take is like until it's over. But it usually turns out good because he's Ian Sinclair. But it made me think about like what else are the pros doing? And so I went and I even asked Alejandro one time. I was like, hey man, like how did you even like get to the point in your career where you're like, let's move to LA? And he told me literally everything. He told me uh a really awesome story about something like that his brother went to New York, and his brother was having a hard time because he didn't have like a social group. So he said, find a lot of friends, find people that, not a lot of friends, but at least find a group that like that you feel like you can be comfortable with. Because if you decide to just move to like a new town, and it's like, well, I got no friends here, so I guess I'm just gonna try and make friends somehow. Um, but yeah, it was something that Sean said that really made me start thinking about, okay, what are the guys who are succeeding doing? Why can't I try to replicate some of that? And so I did some of that to some extent, and it did show. It made me look a lot more professional and ready than I think a lot of people were expecting me to be. So I went from Sean's session to a different Walla session, and Walla is the background extra voices that you hear in the anime. And I was doing like stuff that Xeno was doing, and you could tell on the directors' faces that had never used me before. They were like, "Oh, okay, this guy knows what he's doing." And so, replicate what people do. Ask them what their techniques are, how they audition. You guys are doing a good job of that. You came here to listen to my dumbass explain how I audition, and I said instinct. uh, but it is instinct for a lot of things. But yeah, copy what a lot of the pros are doing, but don't copy them to a D. Still try and be yourself, but replicate some of the things that they're trying to do and see how it can impact you. If it doesn't help for you, it doesn't work for your style of acting, then don't do it. But understanding what working professionals do can help you understand how they got to the point that they are at. And I find that very, very helpful. As for a second thing that changed my brain chemistry, I will say, I think a vocal technique, man. I was kind of stupid, I think, early on. And you're not stupid, only I am if you do the thing that I did. But I would just I didn't have any real vocal technique at all, like going into Crunchyroll or like doing any voiceover in general. I was just going in there and being like, I can act, let me act into this thing. And, I would scream like unsupported, I would yell unsupported, I would almost pass out in my booth trying to do a cool anime scream, like practicing it. And it wasn't until I took like vocal training classes where I was like, oh, okay, you should warm up your voice before you do something that could be super harmful to your throat. Something that's nice and helps me a lot because I actually have a stutter. If you couldn't tell by all the words that I'm flubbing. I actually had a stutter growing up, and so I do tongue twisters a lot of times. I do tongue twisters in English. I do tongue twisters in Spanish because it helps me say words without stumbling on them as best as possible. I still use filler words like it's just part of life. You can't always think on your feet. I think my brain thinks too fast for my mouth. But that's what tongue twisters are nice. Spanish tongue twisters are really funny and really stupid. I couldn't tell you one off the top of my head because I always use a website. But tongue twisters, straw phonation is another thing. That's where you're like literally going like up and down in your pitch while you're like blowing bubbles into water through a straw. And it could be any straw. It doesn't have to be one of those fancy straws that you buy. I'm sure those do something like real. They help you a little more. Yeah, tres tristes tigres comen trigo en un trigal. Yeah, that one's fun. Yeah, and I still stuttered. Um, but yeah, man, vocal technique was another thing that I had to learn almost the hard way. I remember I was doing To Be Hero X and with Lin Ling. I was like, oh my gosh, dude, the yelling in episode 4 is absolutely bonkers for my throat. And so I forced myself to learn, how do I scream better? How do I uh, yell better? How do I talk without sounding dumb? And so yeah, man, it's just vocal techniques. That's another thing that changed my brain chemistry. And as for a third thing, that's a great question, man. Well, for me, I think it started early on when I was a kid, but I love just talking to myself, man. I would just come up with characters. I would make my dad, my mom, all my siblings laugh. I would bring my Pokemon action figures to life. I'd give them voices. I would copy the voices I would hear in cartoons. Mimicry is such a good form of practice. It's like bonkers, man. If you ever hear a voice and you're like, dang, how do I sound like that? Um, Look up the actor, man. If they just sound like that, yeah, you can try your best to imitate it. Maybe you do have like crazy range, and singing training can definitely help you reach pitches that maybe you wouldn't be able to hit normally if you didn't, practice belting and other different skills like that. But I remember I would practice all sorts of cartoon voices growing up, and that was always my jam. And so, mimicking anything that I thought was funny, uh, vocal technique later in my career, and copying the pros, seeing what they're doing. A lot of copying, feeling like Yuto Kotsu over here. But you copy until you make it your own, and that's just kind of how it goes. Um, if you're gonna steal from the best.
Yes, hell yeah. No, I definitely agree, man. And particularly when it comes to Sean, like Sean is such a golden like goose when it comes to giving input and advice and just random like W pieces of input just like at random throughout a session. So like whenever like I hear people like just give more insight into stuff that he talks about or the things that he provides in his classes or through like either directed sessions and stuff, like it's always so cool to hear because he has so much information to just give out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this kind of merges into our next question a little bit. But outside of the normal aspect of just taking classes, what do you believe are some ways that people can hone their acting ability?
One thing that if you really like anime, what you could do at home, and it's something that I did in a Sunny Straight class, was you could just dub it yourself. And of course, you can't ever post it, and it can't be official, can't be a fan dub, because they do get on you for that stuff. Maybe less nowadays because they can't keep track of everything. But back when YouTube was in its infancy, they could definitely do it. But what Sonny Strait did was Sonny Strait's the voice of Usopp and Krillin, if you didn't know, but and he was one of the first teachers to ever believe in me too. Um, but what he did was he literally took like a clip from Fairy Tale, and he was like, "We're gonna dub it," and we did. We dubbed it, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I had never dubbed anything like that. I had never dubbed, and so it not only taught me what, like, you got to fit the lip flaps, you got to do all sorts of things. So for anime specifically, you could just take a clip from something, see what words that were used in the English dub, and then literally just say those words and try and fit those flaps and practice getting timing down. Um, but in terms of actually good, but that's only good for like practicing ADR. ADR is such a hyper specific skill, and if you want to just do anime, that's awesome. But if you want to have a career in VO, you can't do just anime, and so or you can get really lucky and you can book a really awesome shonen role, and that'll carry you to stardom. But those are one in every 10,000 shows, so I wouldn't bank on it. I certainly haven't, and I like to think that I'm doing pretty all right. But in terms of honing your actual acting skills, please do theater. Please do theater. Go to community theater. Go to do student short films. Try auditioning for on camera stuff because it forces you to act like a person. And acting like a person is so important because if you just come in and sound like a cartoon, it can work. It can work for some roles, but it won't get you every role. And you want to be able to be considered for as many roles as possible. Plus, if you do community theater, it helps distract you. It puts you around people that are like minded and want to do theater along with you. Maybe some of them are veterans, maybe some have a stick up their butt. But most of the time, in my experience, theater people have been very accepting to newer actors so long as you show them respect and you show respect for the art form and you're not just showing up and goofing off and you're trying to put on an actual good play with them. But yeah, dude, I recommend acting as much as possible when you're not taking classes or while you're waiting for the next best thing. I remember I went to New York and just on a vacation, but there's this one restaurant there and I forget the name. Hold on. I think it's called the Starlight Express. Is it called the Starlight Express? That might be a musical itself. Restaurant. No. New York singing restaurant. Yes, Ellen Stardust Theater. I was close. I was not close. Ellen Stardust Theater, or diner. Ellen Stardust Diner. Um, that place is literally an entire diner that almost exclusively hires aspiring musical performers because those people will go and sing their hearts out and you'll be eating a burger in front of them. And that's their practice for whenever they get those Broadway musical auditions. Because Broadway is even more hyper competitive than a lot of aspects of acting, you know? But they are there singing. They're forcing themselves to sing because if they don't sing, they get out of practice. And when you get out of practice, you'll find yourself acting a lot worse than you thought you did, you know? So for me, I can't recommend just finding different ways to act constantly. Yeah, always act. Always act as much as you can.
Yeah, hell yeah. No, I honestly agree. Personally, like my theater journey was primarily through high school, and I might in the future kind of delve into those aspects because there's a lot of like theater opportunity down here in Texas. It's a cool little venture that I haven't taken within my path yet. So maybe a little thing. But overall, no, I honestly do agree. I feel like that just finding ways to be able to practice acting overall and just kind of improving on that, associating yourself with just being an actor, playing characters, playing pretend, playing around with the sandbox, as Steve Bloom puts it, could just help you in every way. You know what I'm saying? So this one, we're taking it back outside of acting, going in more of a mentality aspect. But how do you personally combat envy or comparison amid viewing the successes of the actors around you?
Oh, it's hard. You will get envy. It's just what happens. You will get jealous. You will want a role really bad, and maybe a good buddy even got it. And you're like, damn, I really wanted that one. But you have to realize that's going to be every single day for the rest of your life. And so it's like, okay, well, I can still be happy for them, and it can still sting. You can still let it sting because emotions are being human. But you still have to understand that, you should don't first thing is don't take it out on them. It's not their fault that they were picked. They could have been picked for a multitude of reasons. Maybe the director likes them more than they like you. Maybe they actually gave a better performance and they understood the character a little better. Or maybe they didn't know the character at all, but they just gave a better performance. Or maybe this, maybe that, maybe so. But there's no point in coming up with excuses or reasons or anything because it's always going to happen. It's going to happen forever. Yeah, so for as long as you stay in voiceover, people will book roles that you want. And so the only thing that you can do is be happy for them. You can only be happy for them because if not, then jealousy is an ugly thing. A lot of times you can see it, on people. If someone comes up and congratulates you for a role and they don't mean it, usually you can see it a lot. But most of the time people will congratulate you and they'll be like, yeah, you did good, man. That's awesome. And there can still be jealousy in there because, dude, that's human. Like it's weird if you're not jealous. It's weird if you've never gotten envious before. But so long as you're professional and respectful, then that's all then a lot of people can ask for. But what I like to do when I'm feeling those moments of envy and jealousy is I just disconnect, man. I just disconnect. I've gotten a lot of news where a buddy told me like, hey, this guy got that. And I'm like, oh, he did? Okay. And moved on because that's all you can do. I'm not going to get the role at all, even if I wanted it now, because it's not mine. And so what do? I'm going to go play video games, man. I'm going to distract myself. Keep myself not thinking about it because why? There's no point in thinking about it. There's no point in forcing yourself to be like, man, fuck, man, I wanted that role, damn it. Because maybe you did. I don't know, man. It's exactly, what's the point of being jealous if you can't control the outcome? If you're just jealous and you can't be happy for someone else, then you got to reevaluate, like, why did you want that role? Were you like looking for validation? Are you acting because you want a form of validation, because you want to be famous, or are you acting because you like the art? And it's just something that you really need to look at and evaluate yourself as an artist, because if you're doing this for the fame, then it's not right. Fame can be a perfectly fine-ish motivator, I guess. But I've never once wanted to act with the intention of being famous. I've always wanted to act with the intention of bringing dope-ass stories to life. And, I'm an artist at heart, and I always will be. And so, all I can do is be happy for the guy who booked an awesome role and move on, because who knows, maybe I could book an awesome role next season, and I don't even know yet because I'm dwelling on being jealous or envious. And so it's just like, the dry spell stuff, man. Just distract yourself. I can't control the uncontrollable casting, Exactly. I'm not the casting director. I'm not the director. I'm just the actor. So I'm going to go work out. I'm going to go play games. I'm going to hang out with friends. I'm going to go get lunch. I'm going to go treat myself to something, because just because I didn't book something doesn't make me any less of a person,
Without a doubt, brother. Like, I feel like that envy, like, it's a human emotion, but it can be like some of your worst enemies amidst this industry, man. I had a little bit of story early in my career towards where, like, I fell into envy very, very commonly, man. I used to kind of look on Twitter or look on social media and be like, oh man, like, why is this guy booking that? Like, oh, I could have done that, or yada 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 yada. It was only until, like, I really, like, had this envy for a particular person, and I watched an interview of theirs, and amidst the interview, and they were talking about stuff, they brought up my name, and they only said the kindest words. And I felt like a jackass in that moment. Like, I felt like shit. I'm like, oh, here I am hating on this person that it's not their fault, like you said, that they booked this role. It's just what it is about this industry. And here they are saying nothing but the nicest things about my name in this interview setting. Like, that is crazy. So ever since that, like, years ago in my career, I was like, I'm going to try to combat envy as much as I possibly can. And you're right. no matter what you do, you're gonna feel envy. Like it's going to happen. But I feel like that at least making the attempt to fight that battle, instead of allowing it to overtake you all the time and let that be the thing that you're kind of known for, just being the jealous jerk, you know. It's a dope thing to do overall. It's a cool thing to at least try to combat, because you never know like how these people's perceptions are about you. Like the fact that if when you book something, do you want people to just be, jealous about your wins and what you're achieving and stuff? No, you want, your friends or people around you to be happy for you, because we all equally, to some different extents, but overall, we work hard collectively in this career, multiple hours of research, acting training, rejection, all these things to get where we are today. And I feel like that really taking that in and just seeing that whenever you see someone, post their role announcement or stuff, just post a congratulations, give them a round of applause, and move on, brother. You know what I mean? So that's kind of, just overall the perspective of envy and jealousy. And I'm glad, you had, insight to share into that, because, it's a common enemy, man. We got to fight that shit. It's like the big boss at the end of a RPG,
Yeah, it's a poison, man. That shit sucks, And yeah, exactly like that. You'd hate to be hating on a guy just to see that he thinks nothing but the best of you. Like exactly that. Like I've had that situation before too, where I was just like, damn, man, this guy's so damn good. Why is he booking everything? I want to book stuff too. But then maybe you'll see like a stream or something. They'll be like, yeah, dude, like I had like a tough upbringing, like growing up. And you're like, damn, bro, they're just out here like working hard as just like I'm trying to do. And so it's just something that you always have to rein in and understand that you are jealous in the moment. It's okay to feel jealous. It's okay to feel. Like, don't ever like hold it back, but don't lash out at people because of it. Find healthy ways. I like punching a punching bag most of the time. I have a nice pair of boxing gloves, and I find boxing to be very therapeutic. And if I ever feel like any emotions that are like, I guess I just got to get something out. I can't praise physical fitness enough. I saw someone in there mention mental health walks. Oh man, dude, just taking a walk. Taking a walk will clear your head. You go out and it's like dusk. The sky is a beautiful orange. The wind is blowing nice and lightly. Very light breeze. You're wearing a comfortable hoodie and shorts and some nice walking shoes, and you're just looking around and be like, wow, the world really isn't as serious as the internet makes it out to be. Sometimes it is about those moments of lull and quiet, and so long as you can experience those moments but still understand that you're feeling those emotions, I think you'll end up being a lot more healthy as not only an actor but as a person as well. But if you have allergies like I do, wear a mask outside. It helps you a lot.
100%, 100%. So playing around with this kind of conversation and moving on into their next question, how much does your reputation play into the success of a person's career in the industry?
Oh man, I mean, that's the big question nowadays, right? It's like, oh, this guy's got hundreds of thousands of followers. Of course he booked that role. And maybe he did because he has hundreds of thousands of followers. But you know what else they are? A good actor at the end of the day. And it's an evolving thing that does suck, but it's something that we all have to acknowledge that, yeah, the more famous you are, the easier it is for a production to look at you and see, hey, this guy could probably advertise this to a couple thousand people for us for free. When he posts about it, or when she posts about it, when they post about it. And so fame does play a lot more of a role. I've heard a lot of people talk about this specifically And they mentioned that AI is not really, my agent has said this to me, my LA agent. He said that AI is not necessarily the thing that's going to be getting in the way of newer talent trying to break into the industry. It's the sort of stunt casting, you know. And there are places for stunt casting, and there are examples of stunt casting that have worked because that person was a good actor as well, a good voice actor. But there are a lot of times where you'll see a show and you'll be like, yeah, that person who's not a voice actor doesn't sound very much like a voice actor. And so you end up with a performance that's not that great because they're not typically trained to do voiceover. And so, stunt casting exists, but it's more so for Hollywood, more so than it is for the voice actor that you see that has a couple thousands of followers. You know, like I wouldn't really think that if I ever saw Alejandro or Zeno or any of these guys or Amelie, like if I see them get cast in something, I don't think I hardly ever think it's stunt casting. Actually, I really just think it's because they booked it because I know what auditioning out there is like, and it's hell, dude. I remember I said earlier I book one in every 50. Fuck that, dude. I book one in every like 1,000 auditions I do. Like, it's so hard to book out there, and they have the benefit of being famous because they booked a lot of stuff. And some of them happen to stream, and they do a lot of really awesome individual projects. But what they also have is relationships with casting directors, with production, with so many people that are important to getting you work. And so, of course, they book a lot because people know who they are and they know how good they are. And so it's easier for them. And because they have a large following, of course, it's easier to book them because they will advertise to people because they get thousands of likes on every tweet they do, you know? So, yeah, follower count does matter to some extent, but not to all extents because I am an example that following doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot to some people still. I don't consider myself to have a terribly large following compared to a lot of people who are like crazy big right now. And so I still managed to book some things. I managed to book things I couldn't believe I've booked in my entire life. I have a few projects that I'm still eager to see because I couldn't believe I booked it when I did because I didn't have I had even less of a following than I do now. And so I think that following does matter to some, and it doesn't matter at all to others. Some people still fully focus on the acting, and others will take into account follower count and acting ability. Not every person that has 100,000 followers gets cast in everything, even though they do get cast in one thing or the other, because maybe they just haven't polished themselves as an actor enough to make even the fact that they have 100,000 followers worth casting them for, because they don't sound as good as someone else who's been polishing their talent for years now, you know? So never ever think that you are written out of a project because someone who booked it who has a larger following than you booked it. You were always in the running. However, the relationships you have with people, the connections that you have, the ability that you have, all matter more than your follower count does for now. Take it from a guy who had no connections into the industry. I knew absolutely nobody in voiceover. Nobody. The first person I ever met in voiceover in person was Phil Parsons, the voice of Nappa. And I met him doing dinner theater because he does dinner theater. Or he did. I don't think he does it anymore. Because he finally hit the concert, thank goodness. But yeah, dude, like follower count really doesn't matter. People are hustling every day, and it will matter to some larger productions, but at the end of the day, your ability matters more than anything else. So never you can try and blame follower count at times, but it's not a healthy thing to do. And you should really just focus on yourself, you know? Because if you're, yeah, maybe if you're realizing, damn, I need to make some connections, how do I do that? Take classes. If you can't take classes, go to some mixers. This maybe there's acting mixers in your area. Um, you know, and it's only a matter of time before something can come your way and they didn't care about how many followers you had, you know. I still think I book almost every single. I think I book every single role that I book right now or have booked. I've booked it because I was just good enough for the role. I've never once thought I booked a role because of my follower count. Because even at like when I was at like 2K, I was like, wow, this is awesome. But I've been growing this following for like 5 years. You know, like I got on Twitter in like 2020. Like I was booking. I didn't have 2,000 followers till this year. So, follower count to me doesn't matter. I think acting ability matters more than anything. And maybe there's online mixers. I don't know. But yeah, that's my take on it.
Well, no, without a doubt. And honestly, like I happen to agree. I think that this is also like a very hot topic, like within the space and community and just overall a center when it comes to VO. And I happen to agree, man. Reputation and who you are and who knows you, that is still a common day thing. But I wouldn't let that concept be being a reality phase you from your progression in this space because there is, and I cannot preface this enough, so much audition opportunities in regards to voiceover that you wouldn't even know is a thing. Like, I don't even see people talking about like things like IVR, e-learning, other
Mhm.
aspects of the genre of voiceover that is still applied to this career. That overall isn't
Yeah.
tied to voiceover and opportunities that still exist that are out there in the thousands, man. So overall, there are still opportunities out there. There are still ways to be able to climb this ladder. So don't allow that concept, even though it does exist definitively. It doesn't exist for every single project that's out there. You know what I'm saying? So, I definitely agree, homie. And I think the networking topic bleeds very perfectly into this next question. What is your take on the idea of networking, and how do you and how have you approached with connecting with more people in this space overall?
So networking is really hard. I think in general, just because it's weird to try and do it, but in a natural way. It's really hard to network like online in the class, um, because you're all over the internet and you're all just seeing each other through webcams. And honestly, a lot of casting directors who will do these classes will probably remember like one or two people from it, even if you all send in an audition, or send in like your stuff after. Like these people, they'll remember you, but only if you take like 2 to 3 classes with them. But networking, I always say that you should always approach every relationship you make in this industry as a genuine one. Never start it off with the idea of, oh man, this guy's gonna give me so much work if I talk to him and be his friend. It's just not really something that a lot of people that can get you work appreciate. A lot of these people are still people at the end of the day. I hang out with some directors at Crunchyroll, and they don't book me a crap ton. I'm not in every show they do just because I'm their friend outside of Crunchyroll. And I don't take that personally. I don't take that like in any sort of way. Like, wow, that's a slight on my acting ability. I take it as, yeah, you know, just like any other show. He's treating me like any other actor, which is great because that's what a professional director should do. And so, at the end of the day, uh, I think networking is incredibly important. I did it through sheer force of will, and I managed to almost force my way, not force my way, but I managed to sort of find a way to get myself into the industry because I had no connections. I only knew people in film and commercial, but even then it wasn't like a big Hollywood director or anything, or it was all mainly stuff that I built up myself. I found the auditions myself. Or if not, I had someone who would send them to me as well. Like they said, "Hey, I thought you'd be good for this," and I'm like, "Oh, thank you so much for considering me." And sometimes I wouldn't even like book that, you know. And so
Mm.
with networking, it's best to approach it as trying to form a genuine relationship more than anything, because they will always appreciate that more over the guy who's trying to talk to you because he wants to be in your next project.
Without a doubt. I think that the idea of, networking, it's something that is necessary to have like within this space and world, because we're all businesses at the end of the day, but inherently, primarily, we're also people, and I think how I personally gone about it was just treating it in very a nonchalant way. The nonchalantness of just putting yourself out there to people, like introducing yourself to people, being in spaces where other voice actors are online, like this server and other servers like the VA Treehouse, for example, that do have people that are interested in this career, invested into this career, have knowledge about this space and overall industry, that are actively present within these online spaces and stuff. Other sources, like, if you do have those spaces that you mentioned towards where there are people in your area that are also voice actors, doing meetups. I would also say that conventions are a great way to, there's a lot of great voice acting panels. I always see, no matter what convention I go to, some voice acting panel that isn't primarily hosted by anyone attending the event, but just general voice acting panels that are there. And those same panels I have gone to, some of which I've hosted myself throughout my career, that have introduced me to people in person that have also been interested in voice acting, this overall career in space and industry as well. So overall, I feel like the aspect of just introducing yourself and being communicative with people. Social media is a good way as well. The general Twitter space and online spaces. Just associating yourself with more people, talking with more people, getting used to the aspect of just making genuine friendships, getting genuine connections with people, getting to know people here and there. Just overall, I feel like are great ways to kind of instill this networking thing without being such a daunting concept put over your head, as you are progressing in this career, because you're always going to do it, regardless where you are in this space. The amount of people that work in this industry go into the hundreds of thousands to, I would say, potential millions of people that work in the creative field. So there's a lot of people to meet. You know what I mean? And a lot of people to talk to.
There's so many people to meet. Conventions are really fun ways to meet, like, everybody in every aspect. You get involved in conventions, you could go and run a panel, man. You could meet so many actors doing panels. Like, I know Nassim does panels, and so it's like, bro, just get out there and try.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt, brother. Alrighty, so we're kicking it off into the last couple of, let's, because I think we got like 20 minutes before we kick it off to everybody else in terms of questions. So I only got like 3 left. Let's see what the rest of them are. But one of them is we're kicking it back to talking about anime dubbing. So my anime fans, what are some unique aspects about anime dubbing that differ from other styles of the voiceover genre?
So yeah, like I mentioned earlier, in auditions and typically when you're recording, there's not a lot of improv. There's just not room for it. So try not to go in with the idea of improvising something. Um, and with anime dubbing as well, it's interesting because you're basing your performance off of somebody else. And in animation and in some video games, if you're lucky, you don't have to do that. There are still some like dubbing video games like ADR, like a lot of Nintendo games that you see are ADR games because they were recorded in Japanese first and they have the Japanese to go off of. But sometimes they like won't even just they won't like show you the Japanese performance because they still want the performance to be similar, but they don't want it to be exactly like the Japanese. And it's sort of the same with anime. Anime is a weird mix of turning a character into you, putting as much of yourself into a character, and at the same time honoring the original performance and trying to localize it for a more Western audience. I know I try my best to. I even try to match some of the reactions that the Japanese performer does, which we don't do in the West. Like we never go, eh? Or like, oh, like we don't do any of that. But if I can try and like almost Westernize it or localize it a little bit, then I will take a lot of like pride in the fact that I can do that because I think it's cute. I think it's fun that, I can still make it feel like if you're mainly a sub watcher, maybe you're enjoying the dub because it's not that different. Yeah, man. I mean, it's just different in the fact that it's a lot more rigid and it's hard to get comfortable when you're recording for ADR. You're always like on your tippy toes and you're bouncing around, always ready for the next swing because you never know when the lip flaps are going to be absolutely egregious. Maybe the guy on screen is like talking and then he goes off screen and then you get a little break and then he comes back on screen. So now you have to time the words that he is saying to match the break and then end on the where he ends up back on screen with his mouth. Oh my goodness, man. It's definitely a skill set that some people need to work on. I know there are some bigger actors that they roped into, like Hollywood actors. I remember Sakamoto Days. That one is another show where there was quite a bit of stunt casting done. Like I think it would be very silly to say that some of it wasn't stunt casting, and you could tell that some of these guys had never done ADR. And some adapted faster than others, and some didn't. That's just how it is. ADR is a skill. It's hard to just jump into it and, act like you know what you're doing. I got really lucky with my first anime role in Dead Mount Death Play. My guy was a guy who had a mask on, so I didn't have to match any lip flaps. So yeah, even the old like Disney Ghibli movies, they had nothing but Hollywood stars, and Hollywood stars don't do anime. They don't unless you're Bryan Cranston. So like, a lot of times their performances will sound really real, but at the same time it will sound almost slightly stunted because they are forced to act within a time frame, and so I would say that's how it differs a lot from animation in video games. If you're dubbing a video game, it's not that different from anime. And if you're dubbing animation, it's not that different from anime either. But it's just you don't get to play around as much. The character is already made, so you don't get to make the character either. And so it's just a balancing act of honoring a performance that already exists and still trying to make it Western and your own and acting within a time frame. And it's not the most comfortable form of acting, but it does force you to be better at it.
Without a doubt. So like let's kind of get into ADR a little bit, just in case for the people that are in here that maybe haven't really heard of its concept or haven't experienced what exactly ADR is. What would you define ADR to be, just in terms of that process of doing ADR dubbing?
Yeah, ADR stands for audio dialogue replacement, if you didn't know what ADR stood for. And it's literally that. It's where you take mainly audio that is dialogue and you replace it with a different performance. It's what happens with everything. If you happen to grow up speaking a different language, like I did, then you would see a lot of Spanish movies, and a lot of the Spanish movies, like one of the most popular ones was Shrek in Spanish. and that one just had Eugenio Derbez. He played a donkey, and that one he did a really, really dang good job. But that whole performance was not only based off of Eddie Murphy's, but it was one that he had to localize for a Mexican audience as well. And so he replaced some of the jokes that Eddie Murphy wrote to fit like the more Mexican audience. And so audio dialogue replacement is essentially anything that goes into, yeah, Antonio Banderas, he did El Gato con Botas, Puss in Boots, and I think it was English and Spanish in Latino America, and Spanish in Spain as well, because I believe he is Spanish. And so yeah, it's essentially when you replace anything from its original language and you put a different language on top of it, and just try and make it sound as natural as possible. That's ADR. Was that the full question, or did I answer?
Yeah, no, yeah, or you got it, man. I just kind of wanted to break that down, just in case people are in here, just like what we talk about right now. You know what I'm saying? So this will be the last question until we kick it off to the people, lovely people of the server. And as I am talking about this question, please, if you have any questions for Mauricio, please put it in the side chat using the question mark indicator there, and I'll spend the last 15 minutes essentially going through those. Until we go to 7, and that'll be the end. But for our last question, or at least for the one of my own, what are some aspects about the business side of voiceover do you believe are important to know about or aren't highlighted enough?
Ooh, mentality. Mentality is super important, and I see a lot more people talk about it. I remember I saw it was Hayden Davio that talked about mental health, and that it's super important to just keep your mental as best as it can, because the worse your mental is, the harder this industry is going to get, especially when you face a lot of rejection, a lot of silent rejection, because a lot of people love to form like this idea in their head that they should be booking a lot, they should be doing a lot in order to be successful. But that's just not something that happens with this industry. You don't book a crap ton of stuff all at once. It's always you booked one thing and then another thing happened like maybe 2 weeks later, maybe a month, 2 months, maybe 12 months later, And so mentality is super important, and maintaining your mental health is super important, because it's just something that's hard to sort of make healthy when it's already bad, And so mentality, I think, is super important to highlight and remember as an actor. And another thing that I think that is important for an actor is understanding their voice, maybe that is something that's highlighted more. I mean, that's something that a lot of coaches will tell you, but if you've never taken a class, or if you don't take a lot of classes, maybe that's what they won't tell you. But I said it earlier that your voice is the voice that's going to book the most. I would say that most of the characters that I book sound like me, even if it's just like I make a guy sound prettier, or I make a guy sound lower. At the end of the day, I sound like that at different points of the day. Like I wake up in the morning, my voice is deeper. If I talk all day, my voice ends up higher. If I want to sound prettier, I can. And so it's just understanding your voice. What is your vocal range? What kind of characters can you do? Are there characters you want to do? How can you get to that point where you do those characters that you want to do? Am I taking classes? Am I actively trying to improve myself every week? Or am I just doing auditions and hoping that what I'm doing is good enough, even though I might not be booking as much as I want to, And so I think that understanding your voice in your natural state is the most important thing you can do as an actor. And it's something that I've come to really enjoy about my own voice. And I feel like a lot of the characters I do in auditions nowadays feel a lot more like me in some way. And, I think that using personal experiences in auditions and stuff is important as well. Of course, there are some coaches that will tell you for maybe darker scenes. They're like, oh, pull on the trauma, and it can be helpful for sure. But it can also like lead you back down like that dark place that maybe you were trying to get yourself out of, and that's why, again, your mental health is super duper important in this industry. And I think honestly, even more than your acting ability, I think your health in general is just more important. I think your throat, the way you talk is way more important than your acting ability. I think your health overall, always focus on your health. Don't kill yourself to try and do a voice that you can't maintain. You know, say that a an audition comes along for a character that's super low, and you want to sound like this. Like you want to sound like a monster, but you do that, and after the audition, you're coughing, and you're like, oh man, that really hurt my throat. I gotta drink tea, I gotta take a lozenge, I gotta have ninjam. you know that's not, you probably, even if you did book that role, you shouldn't take it. You're going to shred your vocal cords, and guess what happens if you get vocal polyps, bro? You're cooked for 6 months at least. And so you maintaining your health is the most important thing you can do in this industry, and I will stand by that.
Without a doubt, brother. Well, I appreciate you for entertaining all my own questions about, you're acting, all these different nuances, the voiceover space. I'm going to kick it off to the side chat, because I see some people have already put some of their questions in the side chat for you to be able to consider. So I'll have you do is just look at the side chat, starting all the way from where my lovely friend Sora is, all the way down. Just kind of picking some questions, saying them out loud, and answering them if you'd like to.
Sure. I'm picking the questions here?
Yeah. You can pick the question, homie.
All right, I'll look at Sora first here. Favorite pay-to-play websites. I haven't used Actors Access. I've heard a lot about it. Voices 123. If I'm not mistaken, they've done some AI shit that's not really cool. Backstage is kind of nice. I've made my money back every year. I've done Backstage seriously. So Backstage, you find some actually pretty good non-union stuff on there, and even some union stuff. In fact, they booked all of Hamilton off of Backstage. Greatest challenge, not all of it, some of it though. Greatest challenge at the beginning of your journey, getting in, dude. It's fucking hard. It's hard to get in. I had to make my own way in because I knew nobody. Some people are lucky enough to do a performance, and director's there, and they're like, "Hey, have you done anime?" I didn't know that, and so I didn't know anything. I learned everything from literally just going out and doing it myself. The first gig I ever booked was off of Craigslist, funnily enough, and I made $1,000 off that, but it was the sketchiest job I ever did. I don't recommend Craigslist for acting gigs, guys. But yeah, just getting in general, dude, and finding ways to get in, finding out who could put me in a place to succeed, and yeah, I think that was definitely the hardest part, but I eventually did find it, and just through taking classes and meeting new people, and they tell you, oh, I talked to this person, oh, I met this person. Again, networking, very important. More techniques we could steal. Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if I have any more techniques you could steal. I'm not very technique savvy. I'm sorry. I like to take techniques, but for techniques for like video games and animation and stuff, I don't really have a whole lot. I just kind of, again, I just go with my first thought. I workshop the character in my head, and I try and do the best. But I know it's Robert Horvitz or Horvitz, Richard. What's his name? Richard Horvitz.
Yeah, Richard Horvitz.
Yeah, Richard. Fuck me, bro. Richard Horvitz. A lot of people praise him to Kingdom Come about his style of acting in his classes. So I mean, if you can take one with him, I bet he could tell you a few awesome ones. Favorite type of VO work. I mean, anime is really really cool, but I really love video games, dude. Video games are so fun, and typically you get to be in there for so long when you do book something because they need you for forever. Favorite type, yeah. If you have one acting method of choice, I'm not classically trained, bro. That's the sad part of me. I I don't know the different acting methods, man. I just raw dog. I just raw dog the acting method, and again, it's instinct. Um, if you can get better, if you feel like you can get better off of doing the acting methods, then more power to you, dude. You are more classically trained than I am, but and if you know that shit, dude, you're probably improving yourself way faster than I did when I started. So you're doing a great job if you know what the hell those three things mean. What are your thoughts on narration reels? What is the best advice that you can give? Um, so I do like e-learning and stuff. That's essentially just narration over like videos for kids. I don't think you need a narration reel in order to get started in narration. In fact, I booked that gig off of Backstage. Uh, but and Backstage raised their prices, so if they're a little pricey, I'm sorry. But I think narration is great, man. They don't always pay like your bills, but they do give you a good sum of change when you're not doing anything. Typically, the best advice I can give, like just in general, I would say just focus on improving your voice, your cadence, understand yourself better than anyone can understand yourself. And then that's before you get a reel. You should always understand your voice before you get a reel. Because even there are a lot of actors who don't really do different voices, but they are doing fantastic. Yuri Lowenthal is an example of a guy who doesn't really change his voice a lot for his roles, but he does amazing. Why? Because he understands his voice better than anyone. Do I have any tips on neutralizing your accent, especially as a Hispanic actor? So that might be more of a question for a linguistics coach. I assume you have a Hispanic accent, if that's what you're asking. For me, I'm not gonna lie, I was incredibly lucky that I managed to lose it early on because I was forced to speak English early on, just in general. But Spanish was my first language. But as for neutralizing your accent, for me, I would say just look at the way that people talk, you know, and maybe you just watch YouTube videos, man. Watch YouTube videos of people just living their lives. That's a great way to learn accents as well, is listening to people, listening to how they do things. Listen to a bunch of Americans, man. Specifically, if you want to, Chicago American tends to be the American neutral accent, like the sort of a Chicagoan accent, not like the Chicago type of stuff, but like it's just sort of the Midwest tends to be more of a thing. If you can find a coach that teaches the Midwest accent, that would be awesome for you, man. Any experience doing ADR? Slash Spanish dubbing. Spanish dubbing is something I've been looking to do myself. I was lucky enough to do it earlier this year, which was awesome because that was something on my bucket list. I always wanted to do acting in Spanish as well, or at least Spanish dubbing. I've acted in Spanish, but for doing that, whoosh, man, it's really, really hard to do it remote these days. A lot of studios will stay remote, but they will still go with in person mainly. The best thing you can do is really just take a class or move to a place that has an ADR hub. It can still, like, you move to Texas, move to Dallas, move to LA. New York doesn't even have as much ADR stuff as it used to. They have NYV technically, but NYV casts mainly LA talent nowadays. But like ADR and like Spanish dubbing, dude, you can get to live action dubbing, which a lot of it is still in LA, but a lot of it is still happening. I see a few auditions and a few rosters that are very remote friendly. They do live action dubbing, which is just dubbing over a movie, dubbing over a TV show. That stuff will not pay well, but it will give you an ADR credit on your IMDb. So look for rosters, and you should. I'm sure somewhere in this server someone has like a compiled list of rosters that people can submit to. Look for ones that do live action ADR because it's even harder than anime. So do that, and maybe you'll be able to find some that does Spanish dubbing. Maybe some Florida studio or something. I know they do a lot of Spanish dubbing out there. Aaron Singh. I'm curious, how do voice actors balance non-voice day jobs with their voice acting work? Oh, dude, it's hard. It's hard to balance. Sometimes people lose out on work because of their day jobs. Typically, the people that manage to balance it the best are the people who have part-time jobs. As sad as it is to say that it's harder to do it when you don't have like a full-time job, not that it's sad that they have a part-time job. That's not sad at all. But it's sad for full-time workers because it's a lot harder for their company, because usually they're working for a larger company, to understand, hey, can I go do art? And they're like, fuck no, you can't. You can do art in your spare time, and so usually it's a lot easier for the people with a part-time job. They work at a coffee shop, they work just somewhere there where the person who's in charge understands that that's not their passion in life. That's not their that's really not what they want to do. And so the best thing that I could give you in terms of that is just try and be as open and transparent with the person who's in charge of scheduling you as possible. If they understand that, hey, can I go do an audition and come back? Like, could I get on my lunch or something? And they're like, yeah, then that's awesome. Some people aren't lucky enough, and that's just how it goes, man. So you got to make some sacrifices if you want to do VO, like if you want to book the good shit. If a voice actor ever gets a sore throat, do they have any specific remedies? I got a sore throat right now because I've been yapping my head off all day, bro. Yeah, dude. Throat comfort tea is awesome. Throat comfort tea is awesome. Throat coat tea, I believe that's the Yogi and the Health Benefit brand. You can find that in like anything, any Walmart or Target, Kroger, whatever you got near you. HEB probably, but that might be more of a southern thing. But yeah, honey is great. Honey is a natural lubricant for the throat. It is very sugary though, so if you are diabetic, be very careful with honey. I don't know if there's sugar-free honey. I don't know if that exists. But Ninjam is something that people will, like praise to the end of their days. But it's got menthol in it, and menthol is very bad for your throat because it closes up your throat. Same with cold water. Don't drink cold water. I'm sorry to all you ice cube chewers, but cold water is awful for your throat. It closes your throat up and it makes it harder to talk. So warm water, hot water, not boiling water, don't burn your throat, but just warm water with some sort of tea, herbal remedies. That's really the best. And if you have a sore throat, don't fucking talk. Just don't talk. Not talking is the best thing you can do for your throat besides, just drinking tea. But if you can't afford to not talk, then drink tea as much as you can. Keep your voice lubricated. Hydrate as much as you can. Avoid cold water. I hate cold water now. But yeah, if a voice actor doesn't get a particular role in a project, how do they end up being cast as additional voices? Usually they just pick you. Like, it's that simple. You auditioned for a project and they didn't think that you were the right pick for the lead or one of the characters on the sides, or maybe even one of the characters that wasn't on the sides but they still had the cast, and they're like, you know what, but I still like that guy, or I still liked his audition, or I want to give him a chance, so they bring you in. It's that simple. Just impress them mildly and they might try to bring you in for something. That is if you're on a roster for additional voices or any sort of ADR stuff. They really don't need additional. Well, that's not true. They need a lot of additional voices for video games. It's the same thing for video games. You might not get the video game role, but you might book, hey, I'm going to be a bunch of soldiers in the background and I'm going to die. I do that all the time, dude. What's the best type of dubbing to start with? Dubbing? I don't know if there are commercial dubs. That's very true. Narration dubs, that would just follow along with like narration and like a live action thing. The best type of dubbing to start with, there's not really a best one, man. If you can start in any of them, that's awesome. Like, that's sick. You're already half the battle having an ADR credit on your resume. Start with any of them. Anyone that's like easily accessible to you. The most easily accessible one is the best one, in my opinion. Uh, Theater aside, what's a type of training slash class you'd recommend taking in order to meet the standards you'll find in VO? Ooh, uh, VO specific. What's a
Now,
class?
before we answer this one, do you want to continue doing more questions? Because we are going to hit 7. We're gonna hit
Yeah, no,
7
I'm
exactly.
happy answering the questions that have already been posted. So down
Alrighty.
to I think Ducky or Dustin. Was it Dustin? Yeah, I think down to Dustin.
Right.
We can answer those.
Cool.
Uh, cool. Okay, so theater side, Andrea Toyas was a fantastic teacher. Um, she's the casting director for Blizzard, and she is amazing. She is no nonsense. She'll be like, "Yeah, that shit sucked, bro," or she is so fun. Such a fun class to take. I took her casting director for a day class where she showed us auditions that actually booked in like big projects that she cast for. I remember she told us about the voice actor for Reinhardt, Darren DePaul. She said his German audition sucked ass, but guess what? His acting was just better than his accent, and that's why she cast him. And then guess what? He got a good German accent, so it didn't matter. Uh, but Andrea Toyce is awesome. Who else? I think I took a class with Julia B.S. Julia B.S. was awesome. She's the casting director for Breath of the Wild and subsequently Hyrule Warriors as well. Who else? Richard Horvitz. Richard Horvitz. Everyone praises Richard Horvitz to Kingdom Come. Take a class with him. He's very good at what he does. Yeah, I would recommend those classes. And training, vocal training. If you can get with a vocal coach, singing is fantastic for your voice. If you can sing, you're already like, you set yourself apart from so many other actors in the industry because you can reach pitches that maybe other people just didn't know or can't reach at all. Or maybe you can hold a voice for longer than other people, and that's just better. So singing training, vocal training, and classes with people who know what they're talking about. After a rough VO patch, what do you feel like the first step taken is pushing yourself back out? Like is this like after burnout or like after a dry spell? I'm assuming. So after that stuff, man, I try and just be kind to myself. And sometimes I don't succeed all the time, but if I feel like I didn't do a good job at work, I'll be like, damn it, man, I really felt like I botched that session. Then, and it's happened multiple times to me. Then I'll go, dude, and I'll just treat myself to lunch. I'll get a nice Japanese, go to a Japanese place that I really love. I'll get breakfast for dinner, man. I'll just, I'll try and, uh, I'll try and treat myself to remind myself that, it's not all bad. But if I'm trying to like push myself back out there, it's really just sort of making yourself do it, dude. It's like, it's so hard too, because I've been burnt out. I've been burnt out of my mind, man. Like, there was this one patch back in 22 that was bad. I was just like, fuck, dude, I really, really hate acting right now. And that sucks because I love acting, but I couldn't make myself act for whatever reason. I was burnt out. And it was a mix of like all sorts of things. It was life and not just acting. But I think putting myself in a better headspace and putting myself in a better reevaluating my relationship with acting, I think I managed to force myself back in. And you just sort of have to do it. You have to make yourself audition. And even if you don't like it, you have to do it because there's no other way to get you back into it without actively doing it. Does networking work the same way in all areas? Absolutely not. If you network with people here in Texas, that's awesome. But in Texas, it's mainly anime, man. It's gonna be mainly anime down here. There's not a whole lot else. I've done some commercials in studios down here. Dallas Audio Post is a place I've worked at multiple times for radio spots, which is another thing you probably never considered doing radio spots. There are some people who came from radio back when it was uber relevant, and they moved on from radio to doing voiceover, but it doesn't work the same. In Texas, I know there are a few people that throw mixers together, Dusty Feeney being one of them. But uh, in the LA area, it's are you in, I'm assuming you're in Texas. I've networked mostly with people from Texas. Uh, but yeah, in Texas, it's just finding opportunities to meet people. It's hard. I made myself go out to ones, but only the ones that I was like, it was like an open invite, like anyone could come down. There's this guy Eric Sheffield who threw the first mixer I ever went to, like the first like VO get together that I ever went to, and I was like, wow. A lot of the people that I met there, I'm good friends with them now, but I wasn't friends with them then. But I forced myself to go out there. If you're not in like a big hub, it's really hard, dude. It's really fucking hard. The best thing you can do is be in some of these servers like this. Like you're already doing a good job of getting in the server and talking with other people. These people will be your network, man. Like these actors that we're all trying to get to the top. We're all trying to book the shit that we want to book. These guys are going to be your friends. These guys are going to be the people that you rely on, that you talk to each other. You say, "Hey, this roster open up. Hey, this is that. Hey, this class is open." You know? So you're doing a good job if you're not in one of the big hubs like LA or Texas or New York. And by Texas I mean Dallas. I mean Houston is still a hub, but it's very tiny compared to Dallas now. But you're doing a good job being here. If you don't have hubs near you, So Ravier, what do you think would be an effective way to practice for ADR on your own? Just literally screen cap a clip from a show that you really like, and maybe look for a character that you think sounds like you, like a dude that does a voice that you think you could hit. Because I remember in a class I took, it was directed by Austin Sisk, director over at Okratron 5000, and he directed me over a clip of Link Click, and I was playing Zeno's character, and he just started laughing, bro. And I was like, "What? What?" I was like, "What's up, man?" And he was like, "Yeah, dude, you made like every choice that Zeno did." And I was like, "What?" And then he played the clip side by side, and we sounded like really, really close together. So find characters that you think sound like you, and try and just take a clip from it. You don't even have to screen record it. You could honestly just be watching the show and try and talk over it yourself, or try and record it and put it together and see that you could do exactly what we are all doing, man. You don't need a class. Classes are just nice because they force you to focus. But if you can do it yourself and practice yourself, hell yeah. Just take a clip and dub over it, dude. Do I ever dabble in voice direction? Dude, I'd love to. As much as I'd love to, I don't get to. Not from lack of trying. I would love to voice direct. I plan on asking a few people if I could have the opportunity, maybe closer to next year. But yeah, I would love voice direction. I'd love to cast more because I love the idea of casting. I feel like I have a good ear for good voice talent. So I think I would absolutely love to do it. But I couldn't tell you how to get into that. I could tell you how people get into that because people have told me. Essentially, it's either you work on something for long enough and the director is having a hard time balancing 10 million different people in one project, and they're like, "Hey, you, the lead of this project, you understand what we're doing, right?" And so they literally just enlist one of the people that's working on the project to direct with them, and that's how you fall into directing. Typically, people fall into it. You can almost hardly ever make yourself like do it unless you're directing your own indie project, and that's just how you separate yourself. If you can do that, more power to you. That's a lot of work, but typically people fall into it, typically from working on a project for long enough. I know that's how Damon Mills got to directing Dragon Ball, like everything Dragon Ball related. That's usually Damon Mills, who's fantastic, and they are Frieza right now, so they worked on Dragon Ball so much, they're like, yeah, you know how to direct Dragon Ball, and that's how it goes. That's how Damon directs everything Dragon Ball related. Da, 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 da. What language did I start booking first? English. English was just what I would say I'm more skilled at acting wise. I think I'm not crazy amazing at Spanish acting. I would still say I'm good though. I wouldn't say I'm bad. But I have acted in both. But English was the first thing I booked. Absolutely. Uh, yeah, I don't have a reason for liking either language more. English is fun. Spanish is fun. I think so I do voices both English and Spanish. Mostly trying to dive into Spanish. Spanish is great, dude. If you like know Spanish as a language, you also separate yourself because there are a ton of like Latino characters nowadays. I feel because a lot of video games try and be diverse with their casts, which is really awesome. But a lot of those people are, they're trying to appeal to as many people as possible. So if you know Spanish, if you know a different language, you also separate yourself apart from so many other people. Put that on a resume. What was your favorite line or highlight you have done in your recording booth or a project you have voiced in? Definitely Lin Ling, episode 1, where he's pretending to be nice and he goes, I believe in this world where even a nobody like me has the power to be a hero. That shit was fucking peak, man. I love that. I love that so much. I was so happy that Emily let me, my director for that, let me keep a ton of choices I made. And I feel like we really made that project really special. I love To Be Hero X. Any advice on long recording sessions? Tea. Lots of water. Hydrate. Tea with honey. If you need Ninjum, okay. Menthol is not good for you, but it will make you record longer, and sometimes you do kind of need to force yourself to record longer. So, but do know that it's not healing your throat. The only thing that can heal your throat is rest. Menthol does not heal your throat. It only numbs the pain. It's like if you took a painkiller. You're going to be in pain later. It's just you're delaying it. So drink tea and hydrate for any long recording session. How do you choose what voice to pick from your vocal range? Like, should you be able to shout and whisper in a voice to be able to use? Yes, you should absolutely be able to shout and whisper in any voice that you do. If you can't, then you're severely limiting your ability to act, and you should just get really acquainted with every aspect of your voice. Practice whispering. If you watch a movie, how is that guy, maybe practice whispering. Are you whispering seductively? Are you whispering to intimidate somebody? There's different ways. There's many different ways to whisper. There's many different ways to shout. There's anguished shouting. There's angry shouting. There's impassioned shouting. So many different aspects, dude. Definitely look at a lot of media. Consume media. That's what I do. Consume as much media as possible, man. And learn from the people and the choices they are making because they are typically good choices. Any personal projects that you like to work on during your own time? Nah, dude. I mainly work on. I'm sorry if that's a dumbass answer, but I guess I'm not much of a project person. I'm more so of like a recreation. Like I like doing stuff. I try and make myself go to the gym as much as possible. I'm really bad at being consistent, but I try to because I always feel better after. And I like playing video games. Maybe someday I'll try and set up a personal project like an indie or something. That would be really fun. But I don't know if I have the creativity to truly tackle like a huge project like that. Um, and Justin was who's the Crunchyroll director you have the most fun with? Um, that's the hard part, man. I have a ton of fun with every director that brings me in, because every one of them is so different. They're all different people, which is what makes them so fun. And it's just fun. I don't know if I could pick a favorite. I could tell you the most fun sessions I've had. Definitely with Emily Fajardo. Every To Be Hero X session, I feel like we just kept making nonstop jokes. Like it's just a nonstop laugh fest with Emily. I love working with Emily. Jason is really fun to work with as well. Um, Sean always manages to bring out like some of the best acting in me, and I really really appreciate that. I think he's a phenomenal director. And I mean, it varies everywhere, man. Mike McFarlane, that dude, that whole process with My Hero was the most stressful shit I'd ever done, but it was also some of the most fun I've ever had. Um, with it bounces like everywhere, dude. And any one of those directors could be the most fun I've ever had with, just depending on like what we're doing like that day, man. But I love my job. I love getting to be in there, and I love that they respect my work and that they want to keep using me. Is that everybody?
Yeah, that is everybody, man. So with that, to everybody that's still watching on YouTube, to the people that we have in our lovely, lovely audience, thank you guys for watching, listening, just really embracing the information in this interview in space. Mauricio, I have to thank you, just genuinely, man. Like, I learned just sitting here, hearing you talk, hearing you go in depth about your acting processes, your perspectives about the industry, your ideologies about this space. Really, really fucking insightful, dude. Like, I genuinely appreciate you being here and taking your time to answer everybody's questions and stuff. Man, I'm really, really grateful for you, brother. Do you have anything that you want to promote, where people can find you on social media, anything like that before we end it off?
Oh man, I appreciate you, man. I said at the beginning that we started off sort of in this. I think we started off in almost the same show. It was like but we started like very close to each other in terms of Crunchyroll stuff. So it's been an honor seeing you grow, brother. Going from we went from the Great Cleric to fucking Dragon Ball and My Hero, dude. It's absolutely bonkers. So, I mean, thank you so much for having me, dude. I love getting to talk about the industry. I love yapping, if you haven't noticed. And I love getting to see a bunch of people that are willing and ready to learn about like what someone who's been at it for a couple years and, has been trying to improve constantly has to say. I guess if I had anything to plug, that's my social media on everything, literally everything. So any social media you pull up, I should be on it, because social media is becoming very, very important in the industry. Just in terms of them being able to find out who you are, right? Or if you don't have social media, at least have a website. That's what I can say. But go play Hyrule Warriors, man, out on Nintendo Switch 2. Go play Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. My guy is Cadlin. He's a Zora. Go have fun with him. He shows up so late in the game, but go play. I've been having a lot of fun with it, and especially because the story is canon, it makes it a lot more interesting to play. And go watch the new batch of Detective Conan out on Netflix. I play Kid the Phantom Thief in the final episode of that batch. And Shinichi comes back because Conan drinks some alcohol because Heiji gives a child alcohol because that's what he did. Yeah. Go watch all that stuff and take care of yourself. Please go drink some tea and just get ready. I'm excited to hear all y'all in the future, man.